Hello guys, this is Sam from Trainers in T-shirts in the Philippines, and welcome to this again free video. This video will be about a very important topic actually, and again I couldn't find any video that went through all the details of this topic. This is about the techniques that can help you pass the exam of the NEBOSH International General Certificate. And but I just want to make it clear that this is not a video from NEBOSH. This does not represent NEBOSH views in any way. It's just my personal effort. I'm just trying to help, and I hope this will help. But it's really important, so try to bear with me. Maybe it's going to be a little bit long as usual. So let's start and cut it short. First of all, and I'm quoting the NEBOSH examiner's reports, many candidates fail to apply the command words, also known as action verbs. Things like, the command word, the word which is at the beginning or at the start of the question. It's usually in bold, known as action verbs like describe or outline, etc. This is your first joystick in the game, as we say. I'd like always to think of the NEBOSH IGC questions of having two joysticks. This is one of the joysticks that will help you control your answer and better understand the question. So the first joystick is your command word or action verb, and here is a few examples, as you can see on the screen. Define. Definition. Well, you'll just have to give a definition, as you can find it in the material or any book that you're using or textbook that you're using. Provide a generally recognized or accepted definition. State. It's a less demanding form of define, or where there is no generally recognized definition. It's not really required to be detailed. And then explain and describe. I'd like to think of them as like, they're pretty much similar when it comes to what the examiner is looking for. Explain and describe. Usually give all what you know about the subject in a text format. And then you have outline and identify, more or less the same. It's a little bit less detailed and should be well structured in points and elaboration on the point. And we're going to see examples shortly. Give and list. Those are the I can say the shortest answers that you'd give in a NEBOSH IGC exam, usually not requiring a lot of detail. You're just enumerating or just listing or giving without details. Let's see an example. We'll start with list. If they ask you to list, for example, this is just an example, or give the factors that might be considered when assessing health and safety competence of a contractor. As you can see here, it's a list: previous experience, reputation. There is no much detail in it. But again, don't give us hanging words. So don't say just experience, reputation. You cannot do that. You must put a sentence. So previous experience with the type of work. That's it. Nothing more. Let's move on to the next example. Outline or identify. So in here we need to give a little bit elaboration on what we're writing. 4 main components of the health and safety management system described in the OHSAS 18001. And as you can see, policy, organizing, planning, and implementation, the underlined words are the main point. If it was list or give, then you would not be required to elaborate. But in here, we mentioned policy, and then you need to elaborate 1 line or 2. Organizing, then you need to elaborate 1 line or 2. And this answer is actually more than what's required, because in the question they stated clearly only 4 answers. Okay, so this is clear. Let's have a look at again list, as you can see, and then outline. Okay, the outline and identify more or less the same. Now let's move on to the more detailed answer and the command word that says explain or describe. In this case, you're required to write all what you know about the topic. So, for example, describe or explain the main features of safety inspection or safety audit. As you can see, a safety inspection involves a straightforward observation of, and then so on and so forth. Okay, I'm not saying that those are model answers. We are not here about the actual answer. We're only showing you how to answer. By the way, most of the people who fail NEBOSH, especially in IGC 1, they fail NEBOSH because not because they don't know the information that they should put in the answer. It's because they don't know how to properly present their answer to the examiner in the way the NEBOSH expects. Okay, and so it's more like you mentioned in text format all what you know about the topic. That's in explain and describe. So once more, this is explain and describe, this is outline, identify, and this would be list or give. So this is about the command words. The first joystick in the control of your question. Then the second joystick will be the marks assigned for each question. Always keep an eye on the assigned marks for each question. This helps in controlling how much you want to write for an answer. That is the second joystick in the game. So if you have a look in here, or let's say in this one, it gives you 8 marks. So it gives you more or less, that's 4. So 4 for the points and 4 for elaboration, that's 8 marks. You're maybe required to write like 2/3 of a page or whatever, because otherwise, if you don't know how long you're going to write, then you can write, pages and pages of this. In this question, for example, explain a safety inspection. I could explain safety inspections in more than one textbook, but in this case, they only put 4 marks. So in 4 marks, 4 or 5 lines, well, we covered the topic under the guidance or guided by the marks assigned, because those are 4 marks for each question. So always keep an eye on your assigned marks for each question. Always make sure you notice how many parts does the question contain, because or are you asked to give examples? Because sometimes people read the question, but they don't really notice that there is more than one part in the question. Make sure you read the question till the end. Sometimes because of stress levels or excitement or disappointment during the exam, you don't read the whole question, or you may miss a part. It happens a lot. Yeah, it happens a lot. Following is what I like to call the anatomy of an NEBOSH question, or the structure. How does the question look like on the exam paper versus how I want you to see it in your mind, how I want you to decipher it. Okay, so let's have a look at this question. So here is how the question may look like on the exam paper. For example, explain using an example the meaning of the term risk for 2 marks. And as you can see here, this is how it would look like on the exam paper. But how should you read it? First of all, explain, that's the command word, and in here it's in bold. So explain, and you must use an example to elaborate on the term risk, and you have 2 marks. So let's see how you should see it. So this is how you should see it, actually. So this is how it looks like on the paper. And this is how it should look like in your brain, in your mind. Explain using an example the meaning of the term risk for 2 marks. Okay? In cases of list and similar command words, you should be more keen on giving the number of items in the answer more or less around the marks assigned, like giving 8 items for an 8-mark question. This is clear. If they ask you to list, then yes, if it's 8 marks, then more or less you have to give 8 points. But in other questions like explain or identify or outline, maybe it's 8 marks, but there are 4 marks for the points that you're going to give, and there are 4 marks for the elaboration. The examiner has more chances to give you or to award you marks for your answers. This is not necessarily the case in outline or explain, where the examiner have other parts in the answer to award you marks for. You are awarded marks also for elaboration. Okay? Make sure you attempt to answer all questions. This is very important. Never leave a question blank without an answer. Why would you? Anything that you write might gain you a mark. So please do not leave questions blank without any answers. Never leave a question with no answer. Applying basic health and safety management principles can generate credit-worthy points. So you know the structure, you know the foundation, you'll always have material to formulate some answers. You need to plan your time effectively. This is very important. There are clear instructions on the exam paper on how long you should spend on each section. If you feel that you may need more time for a question, leave enough space for it, move on, then return to it if you have time at the end. And sometimes, especially in the first question, which has a lot of marks assigned, you keep on writing and going, and then all of a sudden an hour and a half has passed and you still have 9 or 10 questions to go. So don't do that. Some candidates fail to separate their answers into different subsections of the question. Structuring your answers to address different parts of the question is critical. Always give the answers properly structured, okay? Always give the answers properly structured, like headings, clear underlined headings, and then elaboration, and then another point, give it clear, make your handwriting appropriate. Examiners always like a well-structured answer with clear headings, okay? Okay, candidates should also be aware that examiners cannot award marks if handwriting is illegible. Of course, if I cannot read your handwriting, I will not give you the mark. Simple as that. If the examiner cannot read your handwriting, you will not get the mark. Handwriting, please. Okay. Candidates should start each main question in a new page. And this is very important, like question 1 or question 2. Not question 1A and 1B can be in the same page, but usually question 1, A, B, and C, and then if you're moving on to the next big questions like question B or question 3 or 4, then you should start it in a new page. And then please make sure you count that. This is very important. Count the answers on your answer sheet, including all parts of the question, and count the question on the examination paper. Do not review now. Do not read. I don't want you to review the answer. Just consider yourself as a complete idiot. I'm serious. Just count. Okay? You can't imagine how many times excellent delegates miss questions only because they did not see the question. Under the exam conditions, stress, excitement, happiness, disappointment, this can sure happen. And then you come out and then your colleagues or friends are asking you, did you answer question 3C about the risk? What risk? I didn't see this question. Okay, it was there, you just didn't see it. So please, at the end of the exam, count the questions on the question paper and count the answers that you provided. The structures, patterns, and methods of formulating answers that you learn during your training and practice are the best way to deal with any question. Much better than memorizing. Please do not try to memorize. You have formulas that your instructor will train you to use. You have formulas for different kinds of questions and command words. You will have good material, good information that you can use to answer any new question. If you keep on memorizing, at one point you will find a question or two that you've never seen before, that you've never encountered before. What are you going to do? You cannot just look for the answers in the material. You'll not find anything. Using different formulas to deal with different questions can get you through some rough times and even help you tackle questions that you've never seen before. So you learn the style, you learn the formula, and then you use that to deal with any question you can answer. And believe me, I promise you can answer any question if you're trained properly during your IGC training. We're going to show a couple of formulas. For example, there is a question type that says factors to be considered or issues to be considered. So they're going to ask you, what are the factors to be considered when doing a risk assessment for a lone worker, for example? Okay, so whenever you see the question factors to be considered, always follow the formula MEEP-TC. That's always consider analyzing the answer. Consider materials, consider equipment, consider environment or work environment, consider the time and the cost. After that, once you're done elaborating on different factors, feel free to add anything you think is relevant. Okay, just cover those factors first. So if this is the case, then any question that says what are the factors to be considered, you can answer them. Just think of this formula, the MEEP, and time and cost, and then after that everything will be easy. The formula is just a guidance, a backbone to use any time to deal with factors to be considered regardless of the task. Factors to be considered when building a work site, factors to be considered when doing a risk assessment, anything. Okay, factors to be considered while preparing a task is different than the steps of the task. And this is very important, at least different in the way you present the similar information. I know it's confusing, but here is an example. Let's talk about risk assessment. List the stages of risk assessment. Well, this is a question that will make you happy because you know the answer. You'll say identify the hazards, decide who might be harmed and how, evaluate the risk, decide on the adequacy of controls, record, review, etc. Sounds about right? Okay. Now, if the question says list the factors to be considered at each step of the risk assessment. And by the way, this is one of the common questions in NEBOSH. So if you go on then and say, identify the hazards, think how might be harmed and how, evaluate the risk, you will not get the mark, okay? Although the answer is very similar, the information is very similar, but the way you present it is different. So when they say, list the factors to be considered, then you need to think, what am I going to consider? Yeah, the materials to be used during the task, the people involved in development of the risk assessment, their competencies, individual factors, vulnerability, risk levels based on probability and severity, consider the work environment, consider pieces of equipment involved, consider the time needed, the cost, how to record, when to review. All those are factors to be considered at each step. So look again, those are the stages of the risk assessment, and those are factors to be considered when you're doing the risk assessment. Okay, so now we covered, and by the way, the question that usually starts with the word list or give or explain the factors to be considered or the issues to be considered is very common. Those questions are very common in NEBOSH IGC. And then the previous slides are just examples, please, of formulas to deal with specific type of questions, not a model answer, okay, and maybe even incorrect, may even be incorrect, but it shows you how to think, how to deal with any question. So set the actual task aside. If they talk about loan working, electrical tasks, anything, set it aside and use the formula and then tailor it to the task in hand. Okay? Remove risk assessment from the previous question and put any task. The backbone of your answer stays the same. So here is a way to deal with any type of question that says factors to be considered or issues to be considered. There is one more formula before we finish and wrap up this very long video. Using the hierarchy of controls you learn in IGC 1, you know, elimination, substitution, PP, etc., to answer most of the questions in IGC 2 related to control measures. You know that in IGC 2, it's always about, or mostly about, they give you a task and then ask you to say hazards and controls, or controls only. So you will always list the controls according to the hierarchy of control. Always put the hierarchy of control formula in front of you. You just break it down in your mind to generic and tailored. Usually the generic part gives you almost 50% of the mark. Then if you're looking for more, provide the tailored control to the specific task. Let's say, for example, when you talk about construction, okay, there are generic things that you'll always say, like the training and competency, supervision, information, work instructions, proper risk assessment, permit to work. Okay, and then you need some tailored things to the construction industry, things like the controls of working at height, the controls of, let's say, housekeeping, scaffolding, use of ladders, etc., etc. Generic control measures, according to a hierarchy of control, may be relevant training, clear work instructions, close supervision, standard operating procedures, planned inspections, emergency response, etc., etc. Okay? As you can see, those are generic professional controls that may fit most workplace hazards. So don't tell me that you cannot say, or there is any task or any hazard that you don't know what to say in your answer. You have generic controls that you can put in any question and you will get 50%. Okay? And then after that, you can tailor according to the task so that you can move on from pass to distinction or to credit. So now add some tailored ones according to the test. So for chemicals, you have local exhaust ventilations, SDS. For biological hazards, personal hygiene, vaccination. For mechanical, for excavation, for electrical, and so on and so forth. For any other tasks or hazards where each has some generic controls and specific ones that must be there, like traffic, housekeeping, mechanical, lifting, physical agent, or whatever they say. I hope this video has helped you. Please feel free to contact me. This is my email, wessam.atif@gmail.com, or visit our website, www.trainersandteachers.com, or our Facebook page, and feel free to communicate with us anytime you like. Thank you very much, and I hope this helped.